It is my sister. She is a witch. She has cursed me from afar because she is jealous of my beauty.
When the prince arrived with his caravan, the whole village gathered under the great baobab. The chief stepped forward. "Prince Azuka, here is our rain bringer, ready to join your kingdom."
Chidera tried to run forward, to tell him through gestures what had happened. But Adanna was faster, even with the limp. She leaned on a walking stick, her head bowed modestly. "My prince," Adanna said. The moment she spoke, the entire crowd went silent. The voice was so beautiful that several elders began to cry. "I am the one you seek. My sister, Chidera, has lost her voice to a sudden sickness of the spirit. And as you see, the burden of my gift has made my body weak, but my soul is strong for you." The prince was confused. He looked at Chidera, who was frantically waving her arms and pointing at Adanna, but Chidera had no voice to explain the magic. To the villagers, she looked like she had gone mad with jealousy. "How can this be?" the prince asked. "The girl I saw yesterday walked with a limp." "The spirits work in mysterious ways," Adanna replied, using Chidera's melodious tone to weave a web of lies. "Yesterday, I hid my weakness because I was ashamed, but today the truth must be told. I am the singer. I am the one who brings the rain." The chief nodded. "It must be true. No one else in this land has a voice like that. Chidera, stop this shameful behavior and let your sister take her rightful place." As the prince helped Adanna onto a beautifully decorated carriage, Adanna felt a sudden searing heat against her chest. It felt like a glowing coal was pressed against her skin. She gasped and reached into her tunic to grab the clay bead her mother had given her. But when she pulled her hand away, her palm was covered in fine grey soot. The bead was gone. In its place was nothing but a pile of cold ash. She looked at Chidera, who was standing in the dust of the road, weeping silently. Around Chidera's neck, her own clay bead was glowing with a soft, pulsing red light. It was still whole. It was still strong. Adanna panicked. She quickly wiped the ash onto her skirt, but the more she rubbed, the more the ash seemed to stain her skin. A dark smudge-like mark appeared on her neck, right where the bead had rested. It looked like a bruised fingerprint of a ghost. "Is something wrong?" asked the prince, noticing her discomfort. "Nothing, my lord," Adanna said, her stolen voice trembling slightly. "Just the excitement of the journey." As the caravan pulled away from Olowo, the sky began to turn an ugly, dusty yellow. The wind didn't feel cool anymore. It felt hot and dry, like the breath of a fever. The spirits were watching, and the balance of nature had been tipped. The journey to the Sun Kingdom took 2 days, but by the time the prince's caravan reached the palace gates, the world felt different. Usually, the Sun Kingdom was a place of green gardens and flowing fountains. But as Adanna stepped out of the carriage, leaning heavily on her walking stick, she saw that the leaves were curling into brown scrolls. The fountains were merely damp stone. "The drought has followed us," the prince said, his brow furrowed with worry. "Adanna, my queen, you must sing. The palace reservoirs are nearly empty. My people are thirsty." Adanna stepped onto the royal balcony. She looked out at thousands of people gathered below, all waiting for the rainbringer to save them. She opened her mouth, and the beautiful, stolen voice of Chidera flowed out. It was a melody of such sweetness that the people fell to their knees in awe. But the sky did not change. The sun remained a harsh golden eye in the heavens. Adanna sang louder, her throat aching, but not a single cloud appeared. She had the voice, but she did not have the heart that the spirits listened to. The voice was like a beautiful instrument played by someone who didn't know the music. Back in the village of Olowo, things were even worse. Without Chidera's song, the well had completely dried up. The villagers were angry, blaming Chidera for losing her gift and bringing bad luck to the land. Chidera, silent and lonely, sat by the edge of the empty well. She looked down into the dark, rocky hole. A tear fell from her eye and dropped into the deep.
Suddenly, the air around her began to shimmer. From the bottom of the well, a figure made of mist and moonlight rose up. It was the spirit of the well, an ancient ancestor. "Child," the spirit whispered, "your sister has woven a web of shadows, but shadows cannot hold back the truth forever. She has your voice and she has your limp, but she does not have the mother's bead." Chidera touched the red clay bead around her neck. It glowed warmly. "The voice is just a vessel. The power lives in the truth. Go to the Sun Kingdom, take the dust from under the great baobab and carry it in your hand. When the thief sings, throw the dust into the air. The spirits will know their own." In the palace, the prince was no longer smiling. He watched Adanna as she sat on her throne. He noticed that she never looked him in the eye. He also noticed the black smudge on her neck. The ash stain was growing larger every day. It now looked like a dark vine creeping toward her jaw. "Why is it," the prince asked one evening, "that your voice brings joy to my ears but no peace to my soul? And why does the rain flee from your song?"
Adanna panicked. "It is my sister," she cried out, the stolen voice cracking. "She is a witch. She has cursed me from afar because she is jealous of my beauty. Until she is punished, the spirits will be silent." But as she told the lie, a sharp pain shot through her leg. She collapsed into her chair, gasping. The prince looked at her with growing coldness. He remembered the quiet girl with the limp who had sung with such purity under the baobab. He began to realize that beauty can be a mask for a very ugly heart. A week later, a ragged figure appeared at the palace gates. It was Chidera. She had walked for days, her feet blistered and her throat parched. She held nothing but a small leather pouch filled with the dust of the baobab. The guards tried to push her away. "Go away, beggar. Our queen is busy trying to save the kingdom." Chidera could not speak, but she pulled the red clay bead from her tunic. The moment the guards saw it, they froze. The bead was glowing so brightly it was hard to look at. It hummed with a sound like 1,000 bees. Sensing a power they didn't understand, the guards stepped aside and allowed her into the throne room. Adanna was standing next to the prince, about to try singing for the rain once more. When she saw Chidera, her face turned the color of grey clay. "Get her out of here!" Adanna shrieked. "She is the one who stole the rain." The prince held up his hand. "Let her stay," he commanded. "If she is the source of the curse, let us see it." Chidera walked into the center of the hall. She looked at her sister with sadness, not anger. She reached into her pouch and took a handful of the sacred baobab dust. Adanna, desperate to prove her power, began to sing. She sang a song of power and command, trying to force the clouds to appear. But as the notes left her lips, Chidera threw the dust into the air. The dust didn't fall to the ground. It swirled around Adanna like a golden whirlwind. The air began to vibrate. Suddenly, the beautiful voice coming from Adanna's mouth began to distort. It turned from music into the sound of a braying donkey, then into the hiss of a snake, and finally it vanished entirely. Adanna clutched her throat, her eyes bulging. At the same time, the black ash on her neck spread across her entire face, revealing her treachery for all to see. The magic was breaking. A great crack of thunder shook the palace, though there was not a cloud in sight. A voice boomed from the rafters, the combined voice of the ancestors. "Adanna, you broke the covenant of the bead. You stole what was not given. You lied to the spirits and the land." In a flash of light, the exchange was reversed. Adanna felt her legs straighten, but it didn't feel good. It felt cold and numb. She tried to speak, but her own original voice was gone, replaced by a permanent gravelly whisper. Chidera, however, felt a warmth rush through her. She gasped, and the sound was clear. She took a step, and her limp returned. She was imperfect again, but she was herself. The prince watched in silence as the black ash on Adanna's face turned into permanent marks of shame. She had her health and her straight legs, but she was stripped of all beauty and all music. Chidera walked to the balcony.
She didn't need a golden voice to be heard. She simply opened her heart and sang a simple song her mother had taught them when they were children, a song about love, forgiveness, and the earth. Before she even finished the first verse, the sky turned a deep bruised purple. A bolt of lightning danced across the horizon, and then the rain. It poured down in sheets, washing away the dust, filling the fountains, and bringing the Sun Kingdom back to life. The prince knelt before Chidera. I was blinded by a face and a voice, but now I see the soul. Will you stay and lead this kingdom with me, not as a singer, but as a queen of truth? Chidera nodded. She looked toward the gate where Adanna was being led away to live as a servant in the fields, where she would have to work the earth she had tried to cheat.
You have watched the story till the end, but what is the moral lesson? Come closer, let me tell you. Your true gifts are woven into your soul by the ancestors. If you try to steal the destiny of another,
You will lose the very thing that made you special in the first place. Truth is the only song the spirits will answer.
if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and follow for more amazing African folktales.